WWE 2K25. What do I think of it, you may ask? It stinks. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an overstatement. It's not that bad. Now, if this game had an island that didn't work and was only added to give the illusion of more content while also shoving microtransactions down the throat of the consumer, then I would say the game is bad. Son of a bitch. After being released about a week ago, I've spent just about 50 hours playing WWE 2K25, and I gotta say, while I do genuinely really like this game, it does have its fair share of problems, which of course I will talk about later. The island. Everything that the game does get right though really makes this game feel like a huge improvement over last year's game. From the showcase to the MyRise, everything feels like it's been more refined and well thought out this time around, which is always nice to see. With all that being said though, I think it's time we take a look at everything WWE 2K25 has to offer, starting with the most fun part of the game, the gameplay. At its core, WWE 2K25 plays damn near the exact same as 22, 23, and 24. To put it simply, if you enjoyed how those games played, you're 100% going to enjoy this game as well. It's got the same arcade style gameplay that those games had, along with the more simulation style elements as well, which is to be expected. As far as the core gameplay goes, everything has remained about the same as it was in the previous games, but there have been a few changes to improve the gameplay a bit. For instance, there's the return of chain wrestling, which at the end of the day, while it is almost identical to how it was in the older games like 2K19, Visual Concepts did make some changes to it to make the feature feel more fresh. For example, now you're able to choose what exactly you want to do upon winning the chain struggle, like striking your opponent or driving them to the ropes. Chain wrestling has always been a long requested feature to come back in the modern games, and I'm pretty glad to see it back here in 2K25, as it honestly works pretty well. Chain wrestling combined with the trading blows minigame honestly does a lot to make matches feel more immersive and fun, which is a huge reason why I love the fact that it's included in this game. Speaking of things making matches feel more immersive, another big addition to this game is the new camera angles during entrances and matches. Being able to use the new third-person camera perspective as well as the free cam in entrances and matches is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a wrestling game. These new camera angles do so much to not only make matches feel more interesting and exciting, but make entrances feel far less repetitive, as you're able to freely control the camera angles and control the overall presentation of a superstar's entrance. This is a feature that I honestly didn't even know I wanted, but now that it's a thing, I absolutely love it. You know what else I love about this game's gameplay? The fact that it gives you an insane amount of freedom to do whatever the hell you want. This is a wrestling game where you can chuck a giant bottle of Prime at your opponent and then immediately after beat them over the head with a light tube. On top of that, you can even do intergender matches this year, which really goes to show how far they went into making sure that the gameplay this year had as little restrictions as possible. Unless, of course, it's the special referee match, in which case the option to disable the referee meter is just blanked out for some reason, making special referee matches feel severely handicapped as a result. Come on, 2K, special referee matches were the best part of 2K24. What the hell happened here? Sure, it's probably just a bug, but it's still pretty disappointing when the match that a lot of people were looking forward to playing just doesn't let them play it the way they want to. Speaking of which, we might as well talk about match types, because this game did introduce a few new ones that are actually a lot of fun to play. The first big match type is of course the one everyone was most excited to play in this game, the Bloodline rules match. This honestly has to be one of the most fun match types I've ever played in a wrestling game because of how unpredictable it is. You could be getting your ass absolutely handed to you, and then all of a sudden one of your allies runs out to save you, but your opponent calls someone else in immediately after. Then of course there's the underground match, which is pretty much just a normal match, except the ring has no ropes and there's a crowd of people surrounding the ring. It's okay, I mean it's nothing I'm necessarily clamoring for, but it gets the job done. I do like the fact that you can do this match in any arena though, which is nice. If you happen to get bored of either of those match types though, well then you're in luck, because Visual Concepts added in 2 new backstage brawl arenas which are just as fun in their own right. The first and best one in my opinion is the WWE archive, since it's filled with so many little Easter eggs and references to stuff from WWE's history, and the other one is just the NXT parking lot, which is fine, but when compared to the WWE archives, I really don't find it to be quite as fun. Moving on to the roster, if I'm being honest, it's not half bad. Sure, it's lacking a lot of notable superstars, and even some that were in 2K24, like 2009 Undertaker, but for the most part, I feel like it gets the job done. What I don't like though is how half the fucking roster is locked behind MyFaction. Now I need to make it clear that not all of the superstars are locked behind MyFaction, as some are locked behind MyRise and Showcase, which I can at least tolerate since those modes are so simple to play through, but the ones locked behind MyFaction are just ridiculous. The amount of hours I had to pour into MyFaction just to unlock 2010 CM Punk is insane. And even then, while 2010 CM Punk has This Fire Burns as his theme song, he still has the same damn trons as modern CM Punk. So what the hell was the point in putting 2010 Punk in the game and making him a pain in the ass to unlock if you weren't gonna give him his own tron? Outside of those problems, the roster is overall pretty good, with it being almost the exact same as it was last year. The same cannot be said, however, for this arena selection, because seriously, what the fuck is this? Now, don't get me wrong, it's not awful, but I mean, a lot of these arenas are just ones that I would never want to use. Super Showdown, Tribute to the Troops 2023, and why the hell are both versions of WrestleMania 31 locked when they were already unlockables last year in 2K24? Like I said, the arena selection isn't awful, but I mean, half of it's taken up by MyRise unlockables like the WrestleMania and Survivor Series arenas from the mode, as well as arenas that don't even make sense being included, like the one I mentioned a little bit ago, Tribute to the Troops 2023. I do like that we at least get the current form of Raw and SmackDown as playable arenas though, so I mean, I guess that counts for something, I suppose. Overall, I gotta say, while the arena selection does leave much to be desired, the rest of the core game is honestly pretty damn good. The gameplay, as I said earlier, while pretty much the exact same as the games that came before it, still has enough of its own unique features like chain wrestling and even visual body damage to make it feel fresh, fun, and exciting. You know what's not fun though? Some of the other modes this game has to offer, which leads me into the next thing I want to talk about, the island. The island fucking sucks. This might be the worst mode I've ever played in a video game in general, and believe me, I wanted to like it. While everyone was shitting on the mode before the game even released, I was in that small group of people that legitimately wanted the mode to be more than just a blatant cash grab, and even if that's all it would end up being, spoiler alert, it was, I was still willing to give it a shot because I believed there would still be that chance that the mode would be fun. Well, fast forward to when the game released. Oh my god, this might be the worst lag I've ever seen in a video game, and I could not have been more wrong. The island is pretty much just a hub world, allowing you to level up your custom wrestler while doing various quests and playing through online matches. First of all, we might as well address the biggest issue, and that's the fact that this mode absolutely ruined the overall creation suite, as a good majority of items and even hairstyles are locked behind this mode. Not only that, but the items in the island are separated by gender, meaning if you buy an item in the island for a male superstar, you won't be able to use it on a female superstar and vice versa. This is undoubtedly one of the biggest middle fingers to all the creators out there, as now if they want to make their superstars the way they want them to, they may get to a point where they need to end up spending money on the island, a mode they may never actually play or have any interest in, just to get a specific item for their CEW, and that's just terrible if you ask me. Even worse is that cross-platform community creations between old gen and next gen got split in half for some reason, which makes zero sense, meaning if you're playing on PC or old gen, you just can't access anything uploaded on community creations from anybody on Series X and PS5. That's stupid. Then on top of that, there's the fact that despite the game being brand new, the island is already dead, with queues for matches often taking 5 minutes or longer, and for a mode that was this hyped up, that's just pretty sad if you ask me. It's very obvious no one likes this mode, and why 2K decided it'd be a good idea to include is beyond me. Obviously it was for money, but even then, I really don't think this mode is going to be that successful in the long run anyways, so what's the point? While we're on the topic of blatant cash grabs, we might as well talk about everyone's favorite punching bag of a mode as of late, MyFaction. MyFaction this year is about the same as it was in previous games in a sense that it still functions the exact same way. It's still the same card-based mode built upon microtransactions that everyone knows and hates. I will say though, as bad as the mode is, it does have one saving grace, and that's the all new world tour mode. This mode is honestly the best part about MyFaction for me, because it's the only part of the mode that doesn't feel like it's constantly telling me to spend more money than I really need to. Essentially, the mode lets you tour, quote unquote, various regions, and allows you to play through a series of matches in each part of whatever region you're currently competing in. Playing through each tour in each region will always net you a good amount of rewards, which is nice, and it's fairly easy to get through too. Sure, it does take a good couple of hours, especially if you're going for 2010 CM Punk, punk like I was, but I mean overall, it's not a bad mode. The other parts of MyFaction though still suck ass, of course. Fuck MyFaction. The other big mode this game has to offer is of course, as usual, the 2K Showcase. And would you believe me if I told you it's actually somewhat decent this year? Now don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, as some of those matches did not feel like they were even remotely tested before release, and my god, some of those timed objectives were a huge pain in the ass. But for what it's worth, it's not half bad. It's leagues better than 2K22 through 2K24 showcases, as this year's showcase not only includes full entrances and commentary, but full-blown in-game cutscenes as well, which is what I and many others have been asking for years now. The showcase this year, of course, focuses on the Bloodline dynasty, and I mean the opening alone, which lets you play through the very end of Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania 40, does a great job to get you hooked right from the jump. For the first time in forever, I can confidently say that this year's showcase is legitimately worth playing. Next up is MyRise, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed it this year. The MyRise in the past few games have never done much to really keep me engaged, as they always just felt slapped together and never really amounted to much. This year though, they actually give you a more cohesive story to play through, similar to 2K19's My Career. You can even continue playing the mode after you finish the story, or even replay it multiple times in a new game plus sort of style, where you get to keep all your stats and everything, which is really nice. Now I don't want to say too much to avoid spoilers for any of you out there who are planning on playing MyRise this year, but all I will say is that if you enjoyed the way 2K19 handled its My Career and you enjoy the more story focused career modes, then I really recommend giving this game's MyRise a try. As for the other modes like GM mode and universe mode, they've both gotten improvements which do enhance the overall experience of both. For example, in universe mode, promos are finally back, and I mean they're fine, they work, but I mean outside of that, it's still the same old universe mode that I refuse to get into as I just have zero interest in it. They do also give you the option to make shows span across multiple days, which is a nice addition, but why did it take this many years for these types of changes to be made to the mode? I mean, after we got Superstar mode added to Universe in 2K22, we got nothing new after that. Universe in this game is definitely better than it was in the past few games, but I mean, to be honest, that's not really saying much when the mode hasn't had much of anything done to it over the years. Then in GM mode, there's the addition of cross-branded pay-per-views where you're able to compete directly against the opposing brand using one of your stars against theirs in certain matches. And then of course there's the biggest addition to the mode, online play. Being able to play GM mode online with friends in this game is honestly a ton of fun, and it works incredibly well, albeit with some restrictions such as not being able to play or spectate matches, as well as not being able to use custom GMs. While the limitations are unfortunate, the fun you can have in GM mode online alone makes up for it. Anyways, with all that being said, WWE 2K25 is a bit of a mixed bag. Sure, the gameplay is fun, and some of the modes like MyRise and Showcase are pretty entertaining this year, but at the end of the day, the game is so heavily bogged down by MyFaction and the island that it can be hard to enjoy the game at times. When half the roster is locked behind stupid MyFaction stuff, and a good majority of the creation suite takes a hit due to the island, these are things which negatively impact the game as a whole and make it difficult for a lot of players to do the things they want to do in this game. Making people play through Showcase to unlock people is one thing, but to force people to play through garbage microtransaction filled modes for hours on end just to get one new superstar added to their roster is a huge problem. Watch, next year they'll start locking arenas behind MyFaction. That's a joke.